Hey guys, Jim Vanosky with Manufacturing Talks. Welcome back. Electrification is obviously a huge topic. When you talk about manufacturing, it's big in a number of ways. Electrification of things in manufacturing, reliability of electricity, provision of electricity to make sure our plants are running reliably themselves. And so it's a huge thing today. And I'm really happy to be joined today by um, Pedro Robredo. He's from ABB, obviously one of the big names in the industrial world, and he's here to talk about all things electrification. He'll be with us in just a few seconds here on Manufacturing Talks. Stay tuned.
Welcome to Manufacturing Talks with Jim Vanosky. Industry has a million cool stories, and Jim talks to the movers and shakers who are making them happen. Let's dive in.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Manufacturing Talks. I'm Jim Vanosky, your host. I'm really happy to be joined today by Pedro Robredo. He is Senior Vice President at ABB for Electrification Services for the Americas. Welcome, Pedro.
Thank you very much, Jim. Very happy to be here in Manufacturing Talks.
And I'm glad to have you here. I think what you're covering is an extremely important and current topic, so we got a lot to dig into. Before we do, though, why don't you just tell us a little bit about your background and how you got doing what you're doing today?
Sure. So I'm originally an electrical engineer by profession, and I've been in the electrical industry my whole career with big diversified industrials. So I started with Toshiba Mitsubishi, then I moved to Eaton, then I moved to Schneider Electric, and now I'm with ABB. And I've been in all areas from UPSs to drives to motors to industrial controls. I've been on the hardware side, and I'm currently on the services side. So I've seen the industry for the last 25, 30 years go through the changes and go through the exciting times that are today, which we are seeing very interesting changes in services and interesting changes in what it is electrification in the US. By the way, a fun fact for you, Jim, and why I'm so excited to be in Manufacturing Talks is that after I did electrical engineering and I worked, then I did a graduate degree in engineering, and the focus was manufacturing systems.
Oh,
so it's been a passion of mine. In all the companies that I mentioned, I was always based in a big factory, and today I run factories for services, but we also service factories and the manufacturing base in the US as well. So it's a topic dear to my heart. I've been in different functions in different areas, but I'm always excited to get to a plant and walk to the plant, the smells, everything about manufacturing. So just a fun fact, and why I'm also very happy to be here with you.
Well, excellent. I mean, obviously that's our focus, but what you do for your job is also huge in manufacturing and ever more so today. Now, let's talk a little bit more about that. So ABB, anyone in manufacturing is going to recognize that name. Obviously, you guys cover a lot of ground, but in your area in particular, give us a little more detail on what your scope is and what you cover.
Yes, sure. So I lead electrification services for the Americas. A very big part of that is the US, which is at the core, and I'm based here in Boston, Massachusetts. And what we do is basically all service associated with the products we sell in the electrical distribution. So you can think of this as the breakers, the power distribution units, the relays, the motor control centers, all that gear through which the power goes through that runs things in a factory. That's where we are. And so we sell those, and we also service those. By the way, for your listeners that or your viewers that may not know, ABB purchased GE in 2018, GE Industrial. So the install base in the US, which GE had been growing for 100 years, it's the install base that we have and that we now complement with ABB solutions as well. So our teams are in charge of servicing all those assets in the US.
So I should have mentioned to you, now I'm a mechanical engineer. I started my career as a project engineer in the chemical industry, and one of my very earliest and certainly my biggest project in my first few years was a complete rewiring of one of our PVC plants for the company I worked for. So where normally I would have no idea what you're talking about when you talk switchgear and you know, things like cable trays and all that, I got kind of a crash course in it back then. So we share some mutual interest.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Now, when we dig into what's going on today, what do you see as the biggest opportunities when you think about manufacturers and where they stand today when it comes to electrification?
Yeah, so I would say that, first of all, I would say that ABB and what used to be GE and all the other big OEMs, we're very well positioned to support the electrification that is going on around the world, but also in the US, because we've been in the industry for 100 years, right? So we are
Right.
long established electrical automation experts in ABB. So we know the technology, we sell the products, but we are domain experts in servicing that. And so one thing that is happening in the industry, which is exciting, is that we are now moving from break fix service. So if you're in a plant, suddenly something breaks, then you call us, we show up and we fix it, or we may have a contract that we come every 3 years and see what's going on. We're moving from that kind of world to a world of what we call advisory services or outcome-based services. So and this is, I would divide in three. It's one where we are the experts and we come to you and say, okay, we're going to check for electrical safety, or we're going to check for power reliability, or we're going to check for the availability of your whole installation here, and we're going to propose solutions for you. So we come as an expert and provide either a safety or a reliability or an availability solution. Then there's the other part, which is the prediction, which is very, very exciting, which is we monitor your assets and we know what's going on with your assets. And with that information, we apply intelligence to that, and we are able to then come as needed. So instead of coming every 3 years or 5 years like we have, we come when it's needed. So maybe it's going to take 6 years, maybe it's longer, maybe it's shorter, and we are able to predict a failure that is coming that we need to address. And so by doing that, we're also making you more efficient, more productive, and eventually drops to the bottom line as well. So it's a service that it's anticipating, right? So we are consultative, we are anticipating. And then the last one, which is also very, very exciting, is as a service model. And you may have heard, and your viewers may have heard about this, which is we basically come and sell you an asset. And in our case, we have one example, which is battery as a service. So we provide you these lithium-ion battery solutions where what we are providing you is an availability. So we're going to make sure that your power is available, and that battery is going to be in the background. You don't even know it. We are listening to you. We're listening to availability. And not only that, we're also able to then take that type of technology and make it cheaper for you, because we can sell power to the utility. Because those batteries, they're charging during the day, and then it comes at night and they're fully charged. And if we are not using that backup, then we sell it back to the utility. So those are the kind of new business models in service that are also transforming the industry and making sure that the electrification that is happening and the need that is happening is also efficient and it makes sense bottom line for your viewers and for manufacturing plants in the US. So we are moving into that kind of new services, which then allows us to come to manufacturers and say, well, what about instead of these big capex investments where you completely redo a plant and you have to invest in these very long-term capital investments, what if we take an OpEx approach? And so we come and by these kind of services, we look, we consult, we monitor and are able to predict certain things. And then we come to you and say, what if we extend the life of the assets that you have?
Mhm.
We can see that by doing certain things, we extend the life of your assets. And we know that, if an asset just runs to the ground and fails, it can cost you 10 more times
Oh yeah.
than if you address it at the right time, right?
Yep.
And the downtime cost is by some studies around $125,000 an hour for a manufacturing, right? So
Right.
you suddenly are able to avoid those costs if we come with an OpEx strategy for you. So we see manufacturers starting to look at that, not just running things to the ground or having big capex projects, but also upgrading, retrofitting, and extending the life of the asset. So that's one of the bigger things we see happening, and we are excited to be promoting and part of that. And you can refer in the internet. There are these cases that we publish with Subaru Automotive and here in the U.S. in Indiana, where we did exactly that. We went there and we walked the plant and we look at all the assets and we modernized, extended the life. We also brought assets that are more intelligent, so they
Yeah.
can also predict things and make sure that there's no currents that are going to affect things. And so that's kind of the example. If your viewer would like to just look at Subaru ABB, and that's one of the examples that we have that can come very, very handy, and that is part of the trends of today.
Yeah, and we're actually going to dive into another example that your folks gave me here in a minute. But just going back to the things you said in the last 5 minutes or so, one thing that I've talked about more and more is we get here in the U.S. now more warnings from our regional grid operators that things are potentially increasingly unreliable. And of course, in manufacturing, like you point out, with $125,000 an hour average downtime cost, reliable and affordable electricity is what we've always banked on. And now that isn't necessarily going to be out there for us like it has been in the past. And I keep banging the drum that manufacturers are more and more going to have to ensure that for themselves. And so hearing what you're saying, it gives people that opportunity to say, we're not the experts who can guarantee ourselves that reliability, and that's what you offer. So to me, you've got such a great story for our times and for our reality.
And it gets compounded because we know that in the next 10, 20 years, the electricity growth is going to be 10 times what other sources are, right? So the grid needs to be upgraded. The infrastructure in the factories and also in the commercial has to be upgraded. So the demand goes up of electricity, and so there's going to be more going through all those wires and equipment, right? And much more power going through all that. And the equipment is older and it needs refurbishing. So suddenly you're being hit from two sides. Is I need more energy. I need to use more energy. And the infrastructure that is delivering that is getting obsolete or having troubles, and this goes all the way from the utility all the way to your to the machines in your factory, right? So you get hit on both sides. Now the good news is that if we do it right, if we are supporting you correctly with these recommendations and with this consultative approach, then we are able to tackle both, right? Help you to have the infrastructure, help the grid, help the distribution, but also make it much more efficient. And efficiency goes to the bottom line as well, right? So it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, and to that point, I had the example of the work you did with SDI Heartland, and reading over that, it talked about some of the retrofit work you did and then intelligent monitoring. So talk a little bit about what you bring to the table with that example and what other manufacturers can look at as the benefit.
Yeah, so in the case of SDI Heartland, they had all these pretty legacy, I would say, not to say very old, but very legacy relays, good relays, and they had done their work for decades. And relays, for people that may not know, is basically the switching on and off of things. And as you get the system to be more complex, you require more relays, and you require coordination of all those relays. So it can get cumbersome. So we went there and looked at that they have these vintage relays installed all over the place, and that these were not, they didn't have the protection that they needed. They didn't have the monitoring capabilities to tell you if things were going well or not, and they didn't have even those relays have arc flash protection, for example. They have safety features, the new ones, right? So we were looking at the old ones and we said, look, guys, we can replace 2 of those for 1 of the new ones. And not only that, the new one is going to have arc flash protection, is going to have monitoring abilities to give you information that you need. And so 2 to 1, but also with better ability to support you. So at first, like any company that has been established for decades, change is not easy. So they were like, we're not easy about that. Not sure.
Right.
So we installed 2. We said, okay, let's do 2. Let's see how it goes. Let's see what your cost of ownership is, what efficiencies you get, how your operators like it, and what you find to be valuable. And then if you like it, then we do the whole thing. We do the 18 ones. And that's what we did. We let them run with it. They operated it. They realized that, wow, this is better. We are monitoring things. We are able to anticipate things. And it's the overall cost of ownership is even less. So it was a no-brainer at that point. Sometimes you have to show it, right? Just show it. They saw it, and then they did the whole facility. So we were very happy with that. We have other examples as well, but that's the kind of partnership that we bring to the table in this 21st century era of services, right? We are there with you. We're partnering with you. We're working with you, and it's not just when the thing breaks.
Right.
We are there to look into the future and to help you with your productivity, profitability, efficiency, and all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, and one big thing that came across to me in reading those examples is you're trying to avoid things breaking. So that intelligent monitoring kind of takes you to a new level in really predictive and preventive maintenance, right?
Right. So I would tell you that for all of us in the industry, these are in the electrical industry, electrification. These are the most exciting times in our careers.
Right.
Hands down, because we are doing exciting things. We're using technology to digitize, to predict, to bring other solutions, and it's absolutely necessary for the security of the country, for things to run well, for the availability of power. So it's a mission critical thing. We have the technology, and it's kind of like the time where this is happening. So we're happy that we are in this part of the transition, and that we can be participants in that, and it's an important topic, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I laughed a little when you said that about exciting times, because of course you're talking about the positive kind of exciting times, and I'm reflecting back to some of my experiences where we had exciting times that weren't so positive because we didn't have those capabilities back then.
You couldn't. It was happening, and it's going down, and the technology, the partners are not there, and then you have to just spend more in redundant units, redundant generators, redundant everything, expensive. So it's very, very interesting times.
Yeah. Now, going back to the hardware side, I know I, for one, routinely now come across stories about, and horror stories really, about the availability of things like transformers and switchgear, and how there are just these huge lead times and shortages. What are you seeing in that regard from where you sit?
Yeah, what happened in COVID times is definitely the supply chain got constrained all over the world, right? And
Right.
some of the basic things like the sheet metal and the copper and the things that go in a transformer and that go into the switchgear. So we were all there for a couple of years. It was pretty constrained. The lead times were super long. customers not happy. We were not happy, and so now what we're seeing in our side, it's kind of coming back, and that's the beauty of supply, demand, and capitalism, right? That there is an opportunity. For example, transformers. We got out in ABB. We got out of the big transformers when we sold the high voltage transformers to Hitachi. So Hitachi has it since 2018. We still do some service, but we know, because there were former colleagues, we know that there's been they cannot keep up with the demand, right? And for me, I see it as a great opportunity because the technology is there. It's been there for decades. The companies that are going to be entrepreneurial and move fast are going to be able to capture and balance the supply demand. So I'm an optimist in those shortages. I think that right now some people are going to take advantage of the opportunity and start producing more transformers and balance that out. Now, on our case, maybe bringing it back a little bit to the digitization and predictive and all that. We left the hardware manufacturer transformers, but we have offers today that are sensors for transformers. So we can provide sensors for transformers that are looking at what's going on there, the temperature and the values, and also able to predict if you're going to have a problem and if you need to address it. So it kind of illustrates also the old service and the new service. So transformers are in shortage, so you want to extend their life. So one is you can wait for the market to start to provide them and replace. But the other option is to come to people like us and say, well, I'm stuck with this transformer and I don't know if I can replace it. I'm going to have to run it longer. What can you do for us? We can come with the sensors and with the offer, put it there, and then maybe tell you, oh, you're actually good for the next 5 years and you can wait, or this is really critical and you're going to have to maybe bypass it and use other solutions. So it's So that's on the switchgear side. We are seeing now 2 years ago, yes, we were at the point where the factories were completely overloaded and we couldn't satisfy the market. Right now, we made investments. So in the US alone, we have invested 170 million in our factories. So we expanded capacity and it started to flow like it should. So we are happy about it. And in the services side, we're also happy because every hardware that goes out, we're going to be servicing it in the future at some point, 5-10 years or beyond.
Well, and you just led into my final question. As you look at the next 5 to 10 years for ABB and specifically for your electrification services outfit, what do you think the big opportunities coming down the road are?
So quite a bit, going back to going from break fix to advisory offers. So I would say one is the whole digitization, right? So digitization affects our own field engineers, right? So our own field engineers now have tablets. They can use the tablet and it will actually tell them what things are happening, like AR, whether either using goggles or using a tablet. So it's a more efficient way of tackling things, and they have the information at their hand, and they can also capture information from the assets, and a report will be generated almost automatic to the customer, right, on what you need to do in terms of safety here, or what you need to do in terms of reliability. So digitization in our own operations and in our own field engineers, but then also digitization of our assets and of the factories themselves, right, where we are able to monitor things and then able to capture value to give to the customer. For example, we just acquired a company called SIM, which is low voltage assets management. And they do this. They go to the customers and they digitize the information. And from the information, they're able to provide solutions and outcomes to make them more reliable and safe and available. We are also in a partnership with a company from North Carolina called Industrial. And that company looks at manufacturing lines and is looking at every asset in the line monitoring that and looking at what kind of changes we can do to balance the line, to make the line more efficient, and to, in a sense, the cost per asset, right, of a specific manufacturing line, and then provide feedback to make it more efficient and to save more money and all that. So what we're seeing is by digitizing and using intelligence, we are able to make things much more efficient, whether it's our field engineers or whether it's the factories that we are consulting with. The other thing is sustainability. So there are sustainability obligations today, either by boards of the companies or by regulations or by the market. And so we can also come to companies and say, we can be your sustainability advisor, right?
Mm-hmm.
And let's look at what you have. Are you interested in renewable solar panels, or are you interested in calculating your KPIs that will convert into carbon safe? If you're interested in carbon safe, converting that into a KPI, we can tell you how. And at the end of the day, it's just like everything else. We're looking at the efficiency of the assets, of how you can save money, how you can be more productive, and you can report it as a sustainability thing. You can report it as a reliability thing. There's different buckets for that, but we are able to come in that regard. And then finally, I would say that it's the OpEx approach that I had talked about, where you are future-proofing your assets and extending their life and making it more efficient, more intelligent as well. And so we can be a partner to the manufacturers in the US and come and help you in the digitization or sustainability, or in your OpEx approach to things and extending the life of things. So we are there in all of those aspects, whether as a consultant or whether as implementing the prediction of your assets, or even if you want to do a new business model and as a service, put batteries or do things that are a little bit more out there, but that are in reality and they're coming, right? And they're part of the whole electrification story in the US. And so we are ready, capable, and ready to be there as a partner, as the 100-year company that we are. But we want the other next 100 years to also be there. So we are moving into all that as well.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and again, coming from industry myself, I can tell you ABB, just the name kind of gives people comfort. Obviously, very well respected, and you guys have built a reputation based on what you've done in the past. And I love what you said about future proofing. That's where you're going in the future, and that's another comforting term.
Yes.
Well, Pedro, this has been incredibly informative and helpful. So I appreciate you coming and joining us on Manufacturing Talks today.
Jim, it's an honor to be in your podcast, and it's been fun, and talk to you soon.
All right. Yes. And obviously, as always, thanks to you and the audience. You're why we're here. To me, this was one of the most informative topics we've covered here yet on Manufacturing Talks. Obviously, electrification and electricity and reliability are huge in the manufacturing world today. So Pedro brought us incredibly informative stuff. I can't promise every guest is going to be as informative as Pedro, but they're all going to be at least a little informative. So
my pleasure.
Thanks again from Manufacturing Talks. Pedro, thank you. And this is Jim Vinosky signing off. So long.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in to Manufacturing Talks with Jim Vinosky. Watch for new episodes dropping every Tuesday. And don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe.